And State Senator Joe Pittman joins us this morning. Conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people in a remote studio so that we are physically distanced from each other. Senator, good morning. There we go. I guess I got to press the button over here too, don't I? Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
It's good to have you with us here today. So we've got a lot to talk about here today. I'm sure that to you and everybody else watching what's going to be happening with the PIAA meeting today, there are ramifications from it. And going back to an issue that we're finding from school administrators we've been talking about this week, and from what we heard from the PIAA earlier this week before the Oversight Committee, and frankly from the revelation yesterday of a secret deal made by the Wolf administration in a court settlement with the car show out in Carlisle, inconsistency of message and the damage that it can do. Let's talk about that a little bit.
There's a lot to talk about there, Todd. And let's go to the Carmel Car Show and remember what led up to that. The governor had his orders on limitations of crowd size, and then the governor proceeded to participate in a protest in Harrisburg that had a crowd size far exceeding his own limitations. Given that demonstration of neglect, if you will, by the governor, the organizers of the Carmel Car Show decided to proceed with their event. The Department of Health came in and attempted to shut down the Carmel Car Show. They took them to what's called Commonwealth Court, and it became very clear that the judge hearing the case was not going to rule in favor of the department, and as such encouraged the department and the Carmel Car Show to come to a settlement. And here we are months later now finding out what that settlement was, which was essentially go ahead and do what you had planned because we have no real authority to enforce our recommendations or our orders. You know, there's a reason why it's called law enforcement, because you enforce laws. And laws are passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. That's how we get a law. And everything that we've dealt with since March is not a law. It's not statute. And what's galling to me is the governor has never even put forward his initiatives to make them a statute. You know, we passed legislation when we were going through the business closures to have his administration follow the CDC guidelines and guidance for business operation. And he vetoed that legislation. That was our proposal. That's how we felt we should have been managing this. Mm-hmm. But yet he has done it unilaterally. He's done it by press release. He's done it by opinion, and it's coming home to roost.
What has been particularly abhorrent to observers is the secrecy involved in how decisions are being made. This Carmel Car Show secret agreement is one of the pieces of evidence of that, but it's as I said to Representative Struzzi yesterday, it's probably just one of a number of different deals that have been made that are never going to come to light unless somebody really pushes hard.
Well, we hear about granular data. The Secretary of Health says granular data every time there's a press conference about these issues. And when we ask for the granular data, we don't get it. We ask that for the restaurants, the limitations on indoor seating and those things. We're finding examples where the 25-person limitation indoors is greatly inhibiting mental health services and other areas of need. And there's never data to back it up. The same with the school district guidance that was updated last week, the number per 100,000. What they didn't realize or take into consideration is that 1/5 of the school districts in this Commonwealth cross county lines. Mm-hmm. So there was never any guidance as to, well, you know, if you serve part of Indiana County and Clearfield County, like, for example, the Purchase Line School District, how are they to blend in the numbers and come out of that with a recommendation? And so that wasn't thought through to that level. And we see this again after again, going back to the athletics. You know, there was no delineation in the governor's opinion as to contact sports versus non-contact sports. I don't think you can equate tennis and football in the same category.
And yet that is what is happening. And one of the really issues that is concerning to the folks at the PIAA, they're going to meet today, and they have to make a decision. Do we have school sports or not? As Bob Lombardi told the Oversight Committee the other day, liability is the really big thing. If they go ahead with school sports, there's the governor on record as saying that our recommendation is that you not do it. Therefore, the PIAA becomes the one responsible again for a lawsuit, and the state has no protection in place for them. I know legislatively there's an effort underway to give them some coverage. They say that public or private insurance that is run through the through the PIAA is just too costly to do it. They have no protections. And that's what the governor's so-called strong recommendation has done to them. It's thrown the whole thing into chaos.
Well, he walked it back last week and says his opinion and do what you want. I mean, those were his words last week, do what you want. So, yeah, he's thrown this all into chaos. I think there needs to be a step back and an understanding that athletic programs are voluntary. I said this 2 weeks ago. School districts are not compelled to provide athletic programs. Parents and their students and their children are not compelled to participate in them. And when you participate in an extracurricular activity, particularly an athletic activity, you accept the level of inherent risk when you step on the court and you step on the field. And so that level of risk in some form or fashion has always been there as a part of the athletic and extracurricular experience. And at the end of the day, it needs to be up to the school districts and ultimately the parents and their families and the students to make the decision as to whether or not they feel they're prepared to participate in an extracurricular event. That's my perspective on it. All of us in any public realm accept some level of risk and liability in any decisions we make. And that's been made even more difficult in this hypercharged environment that we've had since March.
Director Lombardi asked the state, asked the Oversight Committee, if the state could offer them some relief in terms of liability coverage for should sports go forward. And a lawmaker afterward indicated he's in the midst of preparing a bill. I don't know where that stands, if a bill's been introduced yet or not. I don't believe one has. But do you see it being something that the legislature could do?
It would be something I certainly support. I think it's a difficult task, particularly given the timing of everything, for the legislature to do something like that. We have to understand that when we exempt people from liability, it's very difficult to do it just within the context of one specific circumstance. And that's, again, why we have to go through a legislative process to be very thoughtful about unintended consequences of anything we enact. My understanding is, unless there is what's called malfeasance, school directors and school administrators are not personally liable for the decisions they make. School districts, unfortunately, get sued all the time for any number of reasons. And I certainly can't sit here and guarantee that lawsuits won't be coming for any circumstance or any decision they make. But at the end of the day, if there is a way that we can somehow limit the exposure of that, I'm certainly for it.
Do you foresee any legislative committee hearings of any sort that would call the administration onto the carpet for secret deals such as Carlisle?
I do, and in fact, the Senate Education Committee had a hearing earlier this week where I thought it was a pretty compelling set of questions by Senator Wayne Langerholtz, who's my colleague from Johnstown, Cambria County, where he was asking the Secretary of Health for the data, for the specifics, and whether or not they took into account all of the other consequences that are occurring. For example, child abuse reports are down 50%. 50% decrease in child abuse reports. Why is that? Because the kids are not in school, and school districts are mandated reporters. That is a significant consequence of not having our children in school and in a structured environment. And the problem is that we have not taken a global view of all of the impacts that we've had since this pandemic began. And we have to take a step back and understand that we are causing damage in many other ways and try to put that within a context so we can move forward and provide the healthy respect that this virus deserves, but continue to move forward with our lives and our livelihoods.
As long as we're talking education, I was talking yesterday on the air with the superintendents of both Homer Center and of Blairsville-Salzburg, and earlier this week with the county commissioners. And broadband has become such a hot-button item, so there is hope for the broadband spectrum here in Indiana County. And I haven't had a chance to get your comments on the recent announcement about that. I know that so many people have put so much work into it, and you included in that. It actually started with Senator White before you became the senator. If you could just for a moment touch on that topic.
We've made some real progress in the last 2 to 3 months on rolling out broadband initiatives, and I give our county commissioners great credit. They're using the dollars that Senator White had secured right before leaving office. They're also using a significant amount of the CARES Act funding that we helped allocate to the counties. We're driving out about $2 million of investment in broadband infrastructure, and it's going to help through the Brush Valley, Cherry Tree, and Marion Center areas. It's going to make a big difference in those rural communities. It's not going to be perfect. A lot of it is wireless technology, and as we've talked before, wireless has some level of limitation, but we also have the financial limitation of running hardwire down every road in every area of the county because it's just not feasible. But it's going to be a new source and a new opportunity for people to subscribe to an internet service provider, one that's well known here in Indiana County, and it will be another option and another choice. It's not free. It's going to come with a monthly bill, and it's going to have a range of capacity options, but it's going to be an important step in the right direction. Even with this $2 million investment, there's a lot more to do, but it's set the model and the stage for us to build on it, and I look forward to us continuing to do that here in the months ahead.
It's a big step forward, isn't it?
Yes. I'm very proud of the work that we've done collectively to move that forward.
All righty, so we're at 24 minutes after 8 o'clock. One last question for Senator Joe Pittman, and that has to do with moving forward from this point. In terms of pandemic legislation, just the general atmosphere in Harrisburg and what can get done in the next week or 2 weeks for getting some answers. Educationally, of course, the colleges, the state system, the PIAA question, public schools and private schools. There are a lot of questions still out there, and I know the legislature is very, very interested in helping out.
We are. A lot of it, truthfully, is out of our control. Today, the PIAA is an independent agency. They are essentially a creation of school districts. We have no direct control over any decisions they make. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. I think you're going to see a new level of hearings and conversation occur in terms of understanding exactly how this administration has managed this and will manage it going forward, and to try to bring some consistency to the messages we're giving the people of Pennsylvania. I think the people of Pennsylvania are very fatigued right now by hearing such a wide variation of recommendations and guidance, and also the discrepancies in the case numbers and the hospitalization numbers. That's all been very difficult. But the one thing that I want to remain focused on, because the pandemic is out there and it's real, but there are other issues too, and that is, first and foremost in my mind, the governor's proposed carbon tax. We're quickly moving up to September 15th, the date he plans to submit it, and we're going to have some hearings in Pittsburgh next week to try to further drill down into that issue.
Those are big topics. Senator, thank you so much for coming in to visit with us today.
Anytime, Todd. I'm getting pretty comfortable in this studio, so be careful. I might be moving you out.
Well, I'm not trading positions with you, I can tell you that. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160 and AM 1160 and